So, Microsoft has basically stated that comparing specs of the PS4 against Xbox One is meaningless. Ooh. But before we get to the video, here's the question of the day. Alright, stay tuned to the end of the video to find out the answer to the question of the day. Alright, so I'm taking a look at this article, and I'll post a link in the description. You can check it out yourself, but basically, Microsoft product planning boss, Albert Pinello, said that comparing the PS4 to the Xbox One system specifications is in some ways meaningless. The problem is that Sony decided to go out and publish a bunch of numbers which are meaningless. It's not like it's 1990 anymore, when it was 16-bit versus 32-bit. They actually go out and they talk about how proud they are about their off-the-shelf parts. On the other hand, Microsoft, we touched every single component in the box and everything there is tweaked for optimum performance. Here's what you should care about, basically, is what he's saying. You bought a system to play great games and have great experiences. I feel like our games and experiences are going to be every bit as good, if not better, technically, on top of all the magic we're going to add with the instant switching and the power of the cloud. And he also talked about how he'd rather not have the comparison between the Xbox One and PS4 specs. It's not going to matter. I heard the exact same argument last generation, and it's a pointless argument because people are debating things which they don't know about. Alright, that's very interesting comments from an Xbox representative. On one hand, I can understand what he's talking about because at the end of the day, it's all about which system has the better games or the better exclusives, fun, experiences, and gameplay, accessibility, the amount of features it has, especially like multiplayer, online, the services it has, and the overall quality of the system in terms of handling its ports, its first-party exclusives, and all of that. So that's what's going to matter the most. And it's true that it doesn't really matter, especially when it comes to success and sales, because if you take a look at the past, I don't know, 10, 12 years of gaming, the most successful systems have been the weaker ones, technically, specifically, or specs-wise. I mean, the PS2 was the best-selling, but it was weaker compared to the GameCube and the Xbox, the original Xbox, obviously. And it might have been even arguably weaker than the Dreamcast. That's how crazy that shit was, you know. So you just, it leads you to think like, okay, maybe, I think he's got a point. The DS was weaker than the PSP, specs-wise, you know, the graphics not as good and everything, so you got the 3DS, not as strong as the PS Vita, again, but selling a lot more. What else? Yeah, I mean, the Wii, do we even have to talk about that? The Wii sold the most compared to the 360 and the PS3, even though the 360 does pretty good in certain markets. I think it's gonna overtake the Wii in the UK, I think, as the top-selling system in that region. But still, the Wii has become incredibly high-selling system. So in some ways, there is validity to the, I would say, the financial aspect of it, the monetary aspect of it, turning a profit, making money selling copies. However many people want to buy it, for the sake of buying it, whether they want to experience certain titles on a system. All of that is a good point. It's just that I think he's being a little kind of evasive with the comparison, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the PS4 has technically better specs than the Xbox One. It's comparable, but I think the PS4 is stronger. That's the last time that I heard about it. That PS4 is actually technically more powerful than the Xbox One. That being said, let's take a look at the comments and let's see what the fans have to say. Okay, let's get to some real good comments here. In the Microsoft Marketing Research Lab, And then this guy's talking about how a scientist in the Microsoft research lab goes, okay, well, he robbed me and then jumped out a window. What the hell is this guy told? Okay. The comment section, I was hoping to have some incredibly insightful, feedback. So indeed, true what Alienware said, consoles are becoming PCs, so basically you're going to play in the PS4 in the very high settings. Meanwhile, the Xbox One is going to be the exact same game at medium settings. But hey, that's no issue at all. Specs are nothing. In the PS4, you can't switch instantly from playing a thrilling Battlefield 4 multiplayer battle to your favorite Sex and the City episode with just a flick of the hand instantly. How awesome and useful for gamers is that? Oh my. Yes, and the problem is you get a lot of, people that just want to get your attention, they post stupid comments. Basically a bunch of trolls. Xbox executive says comparing specs is meaningless. Since the 180 is already doomed. Oh god. This is by Spica Antares? Antares. Albert Pinello believes comparing system specs between the One and the PS4 is meaningless. In fact, Pinello believes that anything the 180 doesn't have is of no use, and everything that it has really, really great, I mean great. At Microsoft, we call that objectivity. Speaking of Sony, he says they actually go out of the way, blah 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 blah. Ultimately, Pinello said he believes consumers will choose a console for the games it has, not for how it is described technically on paper. And since Sony will sell more PS4 than 180, they'll get more games down the road and will end up with a nice doorstop to be sold at a discount. Okay, yeah. Oh, jeez. I'm trying to decipher what some of these people are trying to say. Microsoft product planning boss Albert Pinello says consumers truly care. Says the company forcing a DVR function no one asked for instead of giving us the 360 chipset so we can keep our library of games on one console. That's a good point. Sony's not guilt-free either. They don't have DC at the same time, so... Racer X Gundam, this is going to be the last comment I read. I think this was a mistake reading the goddamn comment section. So, say they took off all the dumb features that no one wants. No mandatory connect, made it backward compatible out the gate, and somehow it got it under $300. Say $275. Good luck with that fucking shit. And instead of all that money into a TV show or an NFL license, take the money and freaking rebuild your first-party studio. And buy, not second-party, straight-up hostile takeover a major Japanese publisher. Looking at Atlas, for the street credibility. It would have been a killer. Instead, you made a system that only the alchemist thinks is relevant. Microsoft, can you hear me? If there is no greater sign that you're in trouble than Alchemist giving you his down... blah blah blah. Okay, yeah, you made your point. I understand. I don't know. This was a very interesting comment by, Microsoft. Everybody's talking about this. Got over 3,000 comments, and this was just an excuse by Microsoft. Alright, so here's the answer to the question of the day.